The Third Testament, chapter 11, part 6. Proclamation of his parting. For 3 years Jesus lived with his disciples. He was followed by great multitudes that loved him deeply. For those disciples, nothing existed but to hear the Master preaching his divine teaching. Following in his steps, they felt neither hunger nor thirst. There was no setback or obstacle. All was peace and joy in the environment that surrounded that group. But nonetheless, just when they were most absorbed in the contemplation of their beloved Jesus, he said to them, "The times will change. I will go from you, and you shall be as sheep surrounded by wolves. The hour comes when it is needful for me to return from whence I came, and for you, who for a time shall remain alone, to bear testimony of that which you have seen and heard to those who hunger and thirst for love and justice. Work in my name, and I shall carry you with me to the eternal dwelling place." These words saddened the disciples, and as the hour came closer, Jesus repeated this announcement with greater insistence. He spoke of his parting, but at the same time comforted the hearts of those who heard him, saying that his Spirit would not leave and would continue watching over the world, and that if they prepared themselves to carry his word as a message of consolation and hope to the humanity of that time, he would speak through their mouths and perform prodigies. The entry of Jesus into Jerusalem, triumphal, which was celebrated from the multitudes, received me upon my entry into the city of Jerusalem. From the towns and villages, the people came in crowds, men, women, and children, to see the Master's entry to the city. They were those who had experienced the prodigy and proof of the power of the daughter Christ of God. The blind who now saw, the mute who could now sing the Hosanna, and the bedridden who had left their beds to come hurrying to see the Master in the Passover feast. I knew that the triumph was momentary. I had already warned my disciples of what must later happen. It was only the beginning of my struggle, and now, at much distance from those events, I tell you that the light of my truth continues in the struggle against the darkness of ignorance, sin, and falsehood, for which reason I must add that my absolute triumph has not yet arrived. How could you believe that the entrance to Jerusalem meant the triumph of my cause, when few were those who had been converted, and many those who did not know who I was? And even if that humanity had been converted to my word, were there not yet many generations to come? That moment of jubilation, that fleeting, triumphal entry, was only a reflection of that triumph of light, good, truth, love, and justice that will come one day, and to which you are all invited. Know that if even one of my children is still found outside New Jerusalem, there will be no celebration. For God, Shiloh, and Lord Christ will not be able to speak of triumph. He which is Father Shiloh cannot celebrate if his power has not been able to save even the last of his children. You are they who in the second time sang the Hosanna when Jesus entered Jerusalem. Now I, which is your Lord Christ, is manifest to you in spirit now. You do not throw your cloaks before me. It is your hearts that you offer for the dwelling place of the Lord Christ. Today your Hosanna is not shouted from your throats. This Hosanna springs from your spirit as a hymn of humility, love, and recognition of the Father Shiloh, as a hymn of faith in this manifestation that in the third era your Lord Christ has come to offer you. Then, like now, you follow me in my entrance to Jerusalem. The great multitudes surrounded me, captivated by my words of love. Men and women, the elderly and children. The city trembled with their voices of jubilee. The very priests and Pharisees, fearing that the people might rebel, said to me, "Master, if you teach peace, why do you permit your disciples to raise a scandal in this manner?" And I answered them, "I tell you that if these should hold their peace, the stones would cry out." For these were moments of jubilee, the culmination and the glorification of the Messiah among those hungry and thirsty for justice, of those spirits that for a long time had awaited the coming of the Lord Christ in fulfillment of the prophecies. In that jubilee and gladness, my people also celebrated their liberation from Egypt, that commemoration of the Passover, I wished to make unforgettable by my people, Yet truly I tell you that I did not comply with the simple tradition of the sacrifice of a lamb. No, I offered myself in Jesus, the sacrificial lamb, as the road through whom all my children must be redeemed. The Last Supper, when Jesus celebrated the Passover with his disciples, according to the tradition of that people, he told them, "Something new I will reveal unto you. Drink this wine and eat this bread, which represent my blood and my body, and do this in memory of me." After the parting of the Master, the disciples commemorated the sacrifice of the Lord Christ, drinking wine and eating the bread that symbolized she who gave all for love of humanity. As the centuries passed, the people divided into religions and gave different interpretations to my words. Today, I come to tell you that which was my feeling at that hour, at that supper, where every word and act of Jesus was a lesson from a book of profound wisdom and infinite love. If I took the bread and wine, it was to make you understand that they were like the love that is the sustenance and life of the Spirit. And if I told you, "Do this in memory of me," the Master wished to tell you to love your brothers with a love like that of Jesus, giving yourselves as the true sustenance of humanity. Any rite that you make of these teachings will be sterile if in your lives you do not carry out the practice of my teachings and examples. In that is the difficulty for you, but in that is where merit lies. Just as you are around me now, so too was I in the second era on that last night. The sun was setting when Jesus conversed with his apostles for the last time during that stay. They were the words of a father, Shiloh, agonizing over his very beloved children. There was sadness in Jesus, as well as in the disciples, who did not yet know what, only a few hours later, awaited he who had come to instruct them, and who had so loved them. Their Lord Christ would leave them, but they did not yet know how. Peter cried, clutching the cup to his heart. John wet the breast of his master with his tears. Matthew and Bartholomew were in ecstasy at my teaching. Philip and Thomas hid their bitterness as they dined with me. James the lesser, as well as the greater, Thaddeus, Andrew, and Simon were mute from pain, though with their hearts they said much to me. Judas Iscariot also bore in his heart pain, anguish, and regret, but he could not turn back, for darkness had possessed him. When Jesus finished saying his last words and recommendations, those disciples were bathed in tears, but one of them was no longer there, his spirit being unable to receive such love, nor to behold such light, and therefore he had left because of those words that burned his heart. My peace be with you.